This is the first time McDonald's has seen a drop in sales since late 2020. The company is in trouble. For the first time in years, McDonald's is reporting a global decline in sales, down 1%. Its stock has taken a major hit, dropping 15%. The reason? Customers are finding their meals too pricey and are choosing to eat at home instead. McDonald's global sales are down unexpectedly, with tariff-related chaos shaking consumer confidence. McDonald's effort to bring down prices is clashing with a Trump-era trade problem. Just this quarter, 12,000 locations, 60,000 jobs, and $5 billion in revenue have been wiped out. And no, this isn't a typo, but a full-blown red alert issued by McDonald's itself. Early this morning in Chicago, CEO Chris Kempczinski went live with a startling announcement. We're pulling production lines and temporarily shutting down all U.S. operations to minimize our losses. The shockwaves hit Wall Street instantly. MCD stock crashed 18%. On top of that, a class action lawsuit worth over $30 billion, backed by 1,700 franchise owners, landed on a federal judge's desk. The suit blames protectionist White House tariffs for breaking supply chains and wrecking McDonald's low-cost business model. From the Big Mac, once the crown jewel of American fast food, to the latest victim of a worsening trade war, the fall is jarring. When a brand as iconic as McDonald's is forced to retreat in its home country, you have to wonder, is Make America Great Again still a slogan? Or now a wake-up call about the dangers of protectionism? On March 1, 2025, the America First 2.0 executive order went into effect, approving the highest tariff package in modern U.S. history. A 25% tax on most imports from Canada and Mexico, with threats to raise it to 145% on certain sensitive goods. Just 3 weeks later, an even steeper tariff was slapped on Chinese imports. Described by Reuters as eye-watering, at first these tariffs seemed like just numbers, but their ripple effects were immediate. Ottawa responded with its own 25% tariffs on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, from beef and cheese to fine wines. Meanwhile, Brussels launched $28 billion in countermeasures, banning red meat and dairy products. This was a disaster for McDonald's. The company's just-in-time supply chain was built on imports. 70% of its beef came from Canada, along with cheese from Europe and frozen fries from overseas. In just 90 days, that system broke down completely. U.S. ground beef prices have jumped 43% since 2020, partly because Canada reduced its cattle supply to prepare for incoming tariffs. That made the cost of a Big Mac hit all-time highs. Lamb Weston, which produces over 3.3 billion servings of fries each year, admitted it raised prices 23% just to cover new shipping and import taxes. As a result, first quarter 2025 output fell by 8%. But the problem goes beyond ingredients. Paper wrappers and plastic cups made in Mexico and China are now 25% more expensive due to new tariffs, causing packaging costs to skyrocket by 50%. This devastated the economics of McDonald's famous $1 menu, a model that relies on massive volume and razor-thin profit margins. The National Restaurant Association had already warned. Fast food chains in the U.S. operate on pre-tax profits of around 5%. A cost increase of over 10% makes them instantly unprofitable. As of this spring, wholesale food prices were 35% higher than before the pandemic, meaning McDonald's margins vanished even before burgers reached the counter. Inside the company, the impact was clear. Same-store sales in the U.S. dropped 3.6%, the worst decline since the COVID-era crisis of 2020, despite aggressive marketing and combo deals. But when costs are rising almost twice as fast as sales, every promotion turns into a money-burning machine. And this is just the beginning. One single trade decision has thrown billions in logistics and from burgers to fries into chaos. If the full 145% tariffs ever kick in, OECD experts warn the U.S. economy could slow to 2.2% growth, and inflation could surge by year-end. For McDonald's, the low-cost model hasn't just dipped below profitability. It's actively destroying value with every beep of the fryer. This is the first chapter in a supply chain crisis that threatens to break an entire industry built on fragile margins, unless Washington quickly backs off the tariff fight. The dollar menu, once the symbol of affordable meals, is the first major casualty. Once a lifeline for lower-income families, the $1 menu helped McDonald's dominate that market. But since 2019, with ingredient and packaging costs up 35%, McDonald's had no choice but to raise those prices by the same amount just to survive. According to the company's internal myths versus facts report, nearly everything, from beef to cheese, fries to wrappers, has risen in cost over the past 5 years. And with such slim profit margins, the chain couldn't absorb the shock. Prices had to go up, and those numbers on spreadsheets turned into real-world consequences fast. Thousands of loyal customers, many low-income families who depended on the dollar menu, stopped coming. The result? A sharp decline in sales. In the first 2 months of Q1 2025, McDonald's found itself staring into a financial black hole. Revenue from its once reliable value combos plunged by a staggering 18%, leaving franchise owners and corporate branches alike bleeding cash. Countless restaurants across the country poured money into discounts and promotional deals, desperately trying to pull customers back. But these efforts were largely in vain. The losses kept piling up. What was once a safe, steady stream of income, the backbone of McDonald's affordability brand, had suddenly collapsed under the weight of rising costs and economic strain. Simultaneously, another troubling sign emerged. The price gap between a Big Mac in the United States and China exploded to historic levels. For the last 20 years, the price difference rarely exceeded 50%. That changed drastically. Joe Erlinger, president of McDonald's USA, confirmed what many had already suspected. The average Big Mac now sells for $5.29 in the US, while in China, it costs just $3.53. That's a $1.76 difference, with the US version nearly 50% more expensive than the one in Shanghai. For American diners used to fast food being their go-to cheap meal, this was honestly a wake-up call. Suddenly, even a Big Mac felt like a luxury purchase. Behind the scenes, rising input costs like beef, potatoes, packaging, and logistics were accelerating faster than wage growth, squeezing every part of the business. Franchisees were struggling, and corporate leadership knew something drastic had to be done. Under mounting pressure, the McDonald's board made a controversial decision to approve Project Golden Arch exit. This was no minor adjustment. 6 major U.S. processing plants would be shut down, and operations would shift to 2 low-cost hubs, Vietnam and Brazil. The move was designed to help McDonald's cut expenses, avoid punishing tariffs under the America First 2.0 trade policies, and gain access to lower labor costs and friendlier trade agreements. One of the boldest moves came from Brazil's JBS Group, one of the world's largest meat processors. The company pledged to invest $100 million into building 2 new meatpacking facilities in Vietnam. These plants, focused on beef, pork, and poultry, were built with the explicit purpose of supporting McDonald's new supply chain, with a significant portion of production headed for export. The goal? Streamline meat sourcing for global operations, especially in North America. This strategy offered short-term economic advantages, but it came with enormous logistical and reputational risks. For over 50 years, McDonald's had relied on a highly efficient just-in-time model, built on the promise that every ingredient would be fresh and ready within 7 days. But now, the company was venturing into uncharted waters. Transporting food halfway across the world, through cold storage facilities, multiple ports, maritime shipping routes, and ground logistics, created a tangled web of risk. Delays in any part of the chain could jeopardize the final product. If cold storage conditions failed, if cargo sat too long at sea, or if shipping was interrupted by storms, bottlenecks, or geopolitical conflict, the integrity of McDonald's ingredients could be compromised. In many instances, temperature violations during transit would force batches of meat or produce to be discarded altogether. Even when they made it to restaurants, the products often failed to meet freshness benchmarks, putting the brand's reputation on the line. What once seemed impossible is now a serious concern. McDonald's could run out of key ingredients like potatoes or ground beef within days, something that would have sounded unimaginable a few years ago. But with so many links in the domestic supply chain cut, the margin for error is razor thin. Back in the U.S., employees and partners across core operational states, Ohio, Iowa, and Texas, are growing deeply concerned. In many cities, restaurants that previously served thousands of customers each day are now operating at half capacity or shutting their doors altogether when warehouse inventories run out. In Iowa, once a powerhouse for McDonald's potato processing, the consequences have been devastating. Factory workers are losing their jobs and being forced into lower-paid manual labor roles. According to recent data from the U.S. Department of Labor, over 24,000 workers in the food processing industry were either laid off or had their hours significantly reduced in the first quarter of 2025. That's an 18% increase compared to the same quarter just 1 year ago. It's not just a labor crisis, it's a business model crisis. The twin pressures of record-high tariffs and soaring costs have obliterated McDonald's long-standing value menu, which was once the cornerstone of its global appeal. Under the America First 2.0 policy, tariffs as high as 145% on agricultural inputs and 25 to 50% on packaging are pushing profit margins to the brink. McDonald's once managed to stay profitable even with 5% margins, but now, with all these costs added up, the chain could slip into the red before a single burger hits the griddle. Every time the fryer beeps, it might not signal profit, but loss. The very act of serving a meal now costs more than it earns. That's why the company sees moving production overseas as its only viable escape route. But make no mistake, this is a high-stakes gamble, one that risks food quality, customer trust, and long-term brand loyalty. If the meals don't meet the familiar taste, freshness, and quality standards that people expect from McDonald's, customers may start leaving for good. Even worse, McDonald's can't fall back on its old identity as the king of cheap eats. Not anymore. The landscape has changed, and rivals aren't waiting. Wendy's is already advertising value combos priced 10% lower than McDonald's. Burger King is luring customers with $2.99 Whoppers, and KFC has rolled out a simplified, budget-friendly menu targeting families and budget-conscious diners. While those competitors are strengthening their foothold, McDonald's is still in the middle of building a completely new and untested global supply network. It's a race against time, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The company must balance cost control with food quality, while fending off fierce domestic competition, and hoping customers still believe in the brand. If it fails, the golden arches might shine a little less brightly in the future. No matter how clever McDonald's efforts are to avoid tariffs, the truth is clear. Higher production costs are now baked into every burger, every soda, and every box of fries. When Washington shouted, "Bring jobs back to America," it unknowingly choked the very low-cost system that generations of Americans came to rely on. Unless this tariff war cools down and targeted relief is extended to local companies, McDonald's may be just the first major player to tumble. Many small and mid-sized businesses could soon face the same risk. It may be time for Washington to reconsider its Make America strategies and find a middle ground, one that protects local manufacturing but also ensures prices stay within reach for everyday people. If lower and middle-income families lose access to affordable food, they'll be forced to either spend more or turn to cheaper, less safe options, fueling more inflation. Through all this chaos, McDonald's is playing a high-risk game, avoiding tariffs, slashing costs, keeping public trust, and trying to win back its value status. But one mistake in its supply chain, a sudden price hike, or an unexpected policy shift could turn Project Golden Arch exit from a lifeline into a collapse for the brand that once defined fast food. In this climate of price shocks and policy whiplash, McDonald's must hope Washington listens to the warnings from struggling businesses before it's too late to act. As this drama unfolds, fast food workers are bearing the brunt. The Institute for Supply Management recorded 3 straight months of job losses in manufacturing, with 116,000 layoffs reported in the first quarter of 2025 alone. That economic pain quickly spread to the restaurant sector. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, February saw a 245% increase in restaurant layoff notices, with 1.79 million filings, the worst since the 2020 economic collapse. McDonald's, which once raked in over $5 billion in quarterly U.S. revenue, confirmed it will cut about 60,000 jobs across production, assembly, and logistics. The cuts hit 3 critical areas: Ohio, Iowa, and Texas. These states form the backbone of McDonald's U.S. supply system and include towns where the company is the main employer. Once factory lines shut down, local governments saw a 40% crash in corporate tax revenue within a single month. The job cuts sparked outrage, leading to a national strike call from the Teamsters Union, which represents hundreds of thousands of warehouse staff and delivery drivers. On May 5th, Union President Sean O'Brien issued a warning. If Washington doesn't refill unemployment funds now, there'll be a surge of walkouts across the delivery industry. That message came on the heels of UPS's own announcement. 20,000 layoffs and 73 center closures caused by a 50% drop in Amazon shipments, all traced back to unstable tariff policies. The domino effect is brutal. Bun suppliers like Flowers Foods, which produces 2 billion hamburger rolls each year, are under pressure. Cold storage facilities in Iowa are nearing collapse. Small vendors are getting crushed. One packaging company in Dallas went bankrupt after import tariffs doubled. Meanwhile, cheese and potato farmers in the Midwest are watching their frozen goods pile up with nowhere to go. The people hit hardest are ordinary Americans. With 60,000 jobs now gone, household incomes have dried up and cheap meals are disappearing. McDonald's used to be a lifeline for families in rural and suburban areas that still don't have access to big grocery stores. In small Ohio communities, panic is spreading. We're losing tax money, losing jobs, and don't even know what we're eating for dinner, one Springfield resident shared. Now, with the dollar menu collapsing, the layoffs may just be the first chapter in a much bigger supply chain crisis, one that could sweep across the East Coast and Midwest unless Washington pulls back its aggressive tariff stance. When Project Golden Arch exit forced McDonald's to retreat from the United States market, the legal and financial fallout was immediate. On May 28, 2025, the National Owners Association, representing over 1,200 franchisees, filed a class action lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. The suit claims that average input costs have risen by 40% since the America First 2.0 tariffs took effect, while McDonald's had no choice but to freeze menu prices to keep customers, forcing them to eat up to 90 cents in losses per burger. And it wasn't just franchisees who were angry. In its year-end 2024 legal review, top law firm Gibson Dunn reported that investment powerhouses BlackRock and Vanguard slammed McDonald's for not warning investors about key policy risks before the tariffs hit. As a result, McDonald's market value plunged by 18% during just the first 2 months of the second quarter in 2025. They're now demanding compensation for the losses and calling for more transparency toward investors. At the same time, the United States Department of Justice isn't sitting idle. Multiple states have filed petitions asking for an investigation into whether McDonald's broke the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, also known as the WARN Act, when it slashed 60,000 jobs across production, assembly, and logistics without giving the legally required 60-day notice. Back in early May, the Wall Street Journal revealed that McDonald's had temporarily closed its United States offices to quietly prepare mass layoff notices without following proper WARN procedures. This misstep could open the door to potential penalties and additional unemployment benefit demands for the affected workers. Between the class action from franchisees, mounting pressure from top institutional investors, and now the DOJ inquiry, this crisis is no longer just about short-term losses. It shakes confidence in the entire franchise system, the backbone of McDonald's empire, and sets a dangerous precedent for the broader fast food industry. As this American cultural symbol repeatedly finds itself facing courtroom battles, one critical question keeps echoing. Should Washington continue betting on protectionist tariffs, or begin removing trade barriers that now risk pushing this value menu empire toward global collapse? Stay tuned, because what's coming next may be more dramatic than anything we've seen so far. Wall Street just took a serious blow from the Golden Arches. Between May 19th and 23rd, 2025, McDonald's stock, ticker MCD, plunged by 22%, wiping out close to $900 million in market value in just 5 trading days. This nosedive dragged the entire food and beverage sector of the S&P 500 to its lowest point in 5 years. Investors are pulling out in droves as tariffs continue with no end in sight, cutting deep into profit expectations across the board. And it's not just McDonald's facing heat. Other major fast food players are considering an exit from the Make in America strategy. According to Reuters, Indonesia just launched massive import duty reductions to attract global supply chains, including those tied to food packaging and processing. Insider reports suggest that Starbucks and Burger King are quietly exploring shifting their packaging supply chains to Indonesia, where import duties range from just 0 to 5%, compared to 25 to 50% in the United States. If this trend spreads, Make in America could soon become a running joke. and countless supply contracts may head overseas. On a broader level, the World Trade Organization has now issued a warning. Global investor confidence in the United States business climate is sliding into dangerous territory. When a legendary fast food brand waves the white flag, the ripple effects stretch far beyond one company. Multinational firms are starting to ask a tough question. Is America still the top choice for production and processing investment? Tariff pressure is doing more than just driving up costs. It's rewriting the legal and financial rules of the game. If McDonald's, the very face of fast food worldwide, is forced to retreat from its home turf, extreme protectionism could dismantle domestic manufacturing networks, sparking a domino effect that topples industries like packaging, printing, and food prep. The Trump-era tariff crusade, launched with the promise of reviving American manufacturing, is now raising deep doubts about whether Make in America is even viable long-term. With investors pulling away and companies eyeing the exits, will Washington act in time to restore trust in the United States economic landscape? Because once that trust is gone, getting it back may be nearly impossible. The America First tariff agenda began with good intentions: protect American jobs and shield domestic industries from fierce global competition. But here's the irony. McDonald's, the Golden Arches born and bred in Des Plaines, Illinois, has become a major casualty. Faced with plunging profits, massive layoffs, and a broken supply chain, it's been forced to pull back from its own backyard. If these tariffs were supposed to protect the economy, they've instead crushed the low-price strategy that allowed McDonald's to serve tens of millions of working-class families each year. The budget burger has turned into a costly burden. And when McDonald's shut down dozens of distribution hubs, it didn't just erase 60,000 jobs, it devastated entire communities that depended on that economic lifeline. But this problem is now bigger than just one company. If a fast food titan with more than 80 years of history in Illinois can't survive these policies, what hope do smaller businesses have, those without deep reserves or global reach? How many factories, supply facilities, and partner chains will relocate to tax-friendly markets, leaving United States workers and investors behind? The entire fast food industry and the broader United States food supply system is now under the microscope. Reuters reports that the House Agriculture Committee will hold hearings in early June 2025 to understand why the age of affordable meals has collapsed and to explore options for stabilizing the supply chain. This may be the last shot for everyone: CEOs, labor unions, farmers, and policymakers, to make their case and push for a smarter tariff policy, one that protects American manufacturing without harming consumer welfare. What's your take on this unfolding crisis? Let us know in the comments below. Share this video to help spread the message before it's too late.